A wireless mic crackles as she smiles at the doorway, and the maid grips my sleeve to stop me. The sound leaks from the dining room in sharp bursts of applause, folding into laughter, and I stand at the venue entrance with one foot forward and nowhere safe to put it. Bright lights flatten faces inside, making everyone visible, making me visible, while the mic hisses again like it's clearing its throat for an announcement that hasn't been written yet. I'm here to eat dinner with my daughter. That's the story I carry in my chest, but the maid's fingers are tight and urgent, her eyes fixed on the floor as if the tiles have started listening. I breathe and keep my voice even because the doors are glass and people can see silhouettes through them, and calm is the only armor that works in public. "Sir," she murmurs, and then louder rehearsed, "Welcome," because the room expects welcome, not warning. The wireless mic bumps the podium and shrieks, and the MC laughs it off with a hand raised. "Hold 1 second," he says. "We're almost ready." I watch my daughter's smile hold steady, the practiced warmth that doesn't reach her eyes, and I catalog exits the way I always do without thinking left corridor, right service door, velvet rope barrier already clipped. "You can't stand there," a host whispers to me, polite but firm. "Please step inside." The maid shakes her head once, almost invisible, and presses her thumb into my wrist as if marking a pulse. Don't she breathes barely sound. "Please." The mic crackles again louder, and a guest near the door lifts a phone screen bright, framing me as the delay. "Dad," my daughter calls lightly, still smiling, "we saved you a seat." I don't answer yet. The room hums with expectation, and the hum has a direction pulling me forward. "Sir," the host repeats closer now. "We're on a schedule." The word schedule lands wrong, too heavy for a dinner. I angle my body so the glass doesn't reflect my face straight back at me, and I lower my voice. "What happens if I don't?" I ask the maid. She swallows. "They start," she says, "without you." The mic squeals a sharp line through the air, and the MC taps it twice. "Testing," he jokes. "Testing." A laugh ripples, then fades when the sound doesn't behave. My daughter lifts her chin a fraction, a signal I know from childhood, a signal that says cooperate. "You always make things complicated," she says, just loud enough to be kind. A man in a suit steps closer, badge on a lanyard catching the light. "Sir," he says, "careful. Please." I feel the maid's grip tighten again, and the doorway seems to narrow, as if the building itself is holding its breath. "Your badge is blue," she whispers to him, not looking up. "Mine is green. Don't pretend." He freezes for a beat, then recovers. "Let's not make a scene," he says, eyes flicking to the raised phones. I keep my hands visible. "I'm not," I say. "I'm listening." The mic crackles into a clean channel and the MC's voice fills the room, practiced and bright. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, and the maid's breath stutters like she's counting seconds she doesn't own. "Dad," my daughter says, again smile thinning, "you're blocking the entrance." The host leans in. "Sir, step forward," he says, and his hand gestures small and precise, a choreography meant to move bodies without force. "Read the clause out loud," I say quietly to no one and everyone. The room should hear it. He blinks. "What clause?" "Exactly," I answer. The mic crackles once more louder than before, and the room's attention sharpens. The mic's scream pins me to the threshold, while her smile tells the room I chose this delay. A woman near the door whispers, "Is something wrong?" And the question travels faster than the answer. "We're fine," my daughter says too fast. "Dad just—" She stops, recalibrates. "Dad likes drama." A few chuckles sputter and die. The maid's fingers go numb against my skin, and I feel the glass door cool at my shoulder as someone behind me shifts. "Sir," the suited man says softer now. "Step in." I look at the mic, the podium, the line of sight, the phones, and I make a decision that costs me nothing yet, and everything soon. I stay exactly where I am. I hold at the doorway as the mic steadies, and the room learns I'm not moving tonight. I'm Marcus Lane, 49, a facilities manager from Raleigh, North Carolina. Earlier that day, before the lights went bright and the room decided who I was supposed to be, I arrived through the service entrance with a venue keycard warm from my pocket and a plan that was small enough to survive contact with family. I told myself I was here to reconnect, to eat and leave without stirring old sediment, and the building obliged by presenting neutral corridors and clean lines that made intentions feel reasonable. The keycard beeped once, too loud in the quiet, and the door slid open with the politeness of something designed to move bodies efficiently. Staff moved past with trays and clipboards, avoiding eye contact, the way people do when a room has already chosen a script. "You're early," a prep cook said, not unkind, and I nodded, because early has always been safer than late. I set my jacket on the back of a chair in a side hall and traced exits with my eyes without meaning to. Left turn to the service corridor, right to the ballroom straight ahead, to a chain-secured door that should have been open at this hour. The half-light at that doorway caught my attention, the hall bright behind me, the room ahead dimmer than it should have been, and I paused listening for cues that didn't announce themselves. The keycard hung from my fingers, a rectangle of permission that worked until it didn't. "Dad?" My daughter's voice floated from somewhere deeper inside, light and controlled, and I answered with the same tone, matching cadence the way you match speed in traffic. "I'm here," I said. "Just got in." She appeared at the end of the hall with a coordinator at her shoulder, both of them smiling with their mouths only. "We're almost set," she said, glancing past me to the chain as if it were furniture. "Can you wait a minute?" Waiting is a discipline, I understand. I leaned against the wall and watched staff pass, counting steps between doors, because numbers calm me. A server stopped, then continued, then doubled back. "You can't be here," she said softly. "Guests enter from the other side." "I'm not a guest yet," I replied, equally soft. She frowned, recalibrating. "Right," she said, and moved on. The keycard caught the overhead light reflecting a thin line across the floor that stopped at the chain. I thought about thresholds and how they pretend to be neutral until you need them to move. A coordinator cleared her throat. "We'll bring you in soon," she said. "We just need to finish seating." Seating is a math problem that reveals priorities, and the way she said it told me my variable wasn't in the equation yet. A laugh burst from the ballroom, then cut off too quickly like someone had been signaled. I checked my phone and put it face down because watching screens in hallways invites commentary. "Dad," my daughter called again, closer now, and when she reached me, she adjusted my collar the way she used to, an affectionate habit that doubles as a correction. "You look tense," she said. "Relax." "I am," I said, and meant that my voice was. Her eyes flicked to the chain and back to me. "We'll take that off in a second," she said. "Security wanted it for crowd flow." "Whose crowd?" I asked. She smiled wider. "Everyone's," she said, and the answer landed wrong. The maid passed, then pushing a cart eyes down, shoulders tight. She slowed near the chain and pretended to adjust a wheel. "Sir," she murmured without looking up, and the word "sir" carried weight in a place where titles decide who moves. I waited for more, but she rolled on. I tested the keycard against a reader near the chain out of habit, a small action that shouldn't have mattered, and it flashed red. "That reader's disabled," a man said from behind me. He wore a lanyard and spoke like a policy memo. "Temporary. Temporary things become permanent," I said, and he smiled thinly. "Not tonight." He stepped closer, invading the space where calm lives. "Please don't touch the equipment," he said. "We're on a schedule." The word again heavier now. My daughter touched my arm, pressure light but directive. "Let it go," she said. "Trust me." Trust is a bridge that requires maintenance, and the planks creaked under the weight of the room. I took a breath and listened to the building, the hum of refrigeration, the muffled thud of chairs, the hiss of something being tested on a mic far away, and made a note of the way sound traveled differently near the chain. The doorway glowed unevenly as I hesitated. I told myself I was imagining it, that fatigue sharpens patterns that aren't there, and I slid the keycard back into my pocket, choosing patience because patience had always paid interest before. I waited in the half-lit hall with permission in my pocket and a chain that said patience was policy tonight. The maid passed again, slower, and this time her knuckles brushed the chain, a small metallic sigh that set my teeth on edge. She didn't look at me, but she shook her head once barely, and the gesture was gone before it could be accused of meaning. My daughter watched me watch the chain and laughed, the sound pitched for nearby ears. "You're overthinking," she said. "Come on." I smiled because smiling keeps rooms smooth, and I stayed exactly where I was because staying felt like the last choice I could make without paying for it yet. The keycard warmed my palm as the chain stayed cold, and I learned which one the building trusted. I moved to the back office because it was the only place where people assumed I belonged if I looked like I knew what I was doing, and that assumption has always been a door that opens without noise. The clipboard incident log lay on a counter beneath a humming printer, its metal clips scarred from years of fingers snapping it shut, and the room smelled faintly of toner and burned coffee. I told myself I was just killing time, waiting for my daughter to wave me in, but my hands were already lifting the clipboard weight, familiar posture, casual, the way you hold something when you don't want it to accuse you of theft. "Can I help you?" a woman asked from the doorway badge, green voice neutral. "Just checking where they want overflow," I said, tapping the page with my knuckle, as if the answer might crawl out on its own. She leaned in close enough for me to smell citrus cleaner on her sleeves, and nodded once. "We've been behind all day," she said. "Everyone is." The log was handwritten, tidy blocks of ink broken by initials and short ref codes, and one line snagged my eye because it contradicted the room I'd just come from. A setup listed for the ballroom at an earlier slot than the dinner start I'd been given, with a note about a hold placed on the service corridor that didn't make sense unless you wanted to control who moved when. The location was generic, the language bland, but the mismatch had a shape I recognized from years of reading schedules that tried to lie without looking like lies. I felt the first real cost, then a heat behind my ears because if I lingered, I would be noticed. And being noticed in a back office is the fastest way to be escorted somewhere you didn't plan to go. "That line's wrong," I said lightly, and the woman frowned, scanning. "No," she said. "It was changed this morning. By who?" I asked. She shrugged. "Management. Management is a fog that hides faces," and she reached for the clipboard as if to reclaim it. I handed it back without resistance, memorizing the page, because that's a skill you build when paper is the only witness you trust. "Thanks," I said. "I'll pass it on." "Please don't," she replied, and the way she said it was polite but final. As I stepped into the hall, the maid pushed her cart past eyes-forward hands white on the handle. She slowed just enough to brush my elbow. "Sir," she said under her breath, and then louder for the hallway. "Excuse me!" The ref code echoed in my head, a short string I couldn't shake, and the contradiction settled into place with a click that made my stomach drop. The object had done its work, and now it weighed on me even without my hands on it. A man with a lanyard rounded the corner, smile ready. "We're almost ready for you," he said. "They asked me to keep everyone moving." "Everyone I asked." "Yes," he said, and glanced back toward the ballroom. "No exceptions." "Read the log again," I said, keeping my tone conversational. "The timing doesn't line up." His smile thinned. "Schedules change," he said. "You should relax. Say it again. Your title is coordinator, not mine," I replied, and his eyes flicked to my shoes, to the floor, to the exit. "Sir," he said, stepping closer, "let's not do this here." Doing things here was exactly the point, and the hallway suddenly felt narrower. Sound carrying too cleanly from the dining room, where a mic test bled through a rising tone that made conversation feel exposed. "Dad!" My daughter's voice called sharp, now not kind. "Where did you go?" I walked back toward the threshold because staying hidden makes you small, and small is what traps are built for. The clipboard log sat heavy in my memory, as if I were still holding it, each line a small denial that added up to intent. Guests were beginning to fill the outer area, coats-draped phones out the social machinery warming up, and the suited man with the lanyard positioned himself near the doorway like furniture. "Sir," he said again, "please wait here." The maid appeared at my side, cart abandoned. She didn't look at me, but her voice was steady now. "They blocked the corridor early," she said, before anyone asked. "Blocked it," how I murmured. "Chain," she said. "And a note. A note is a promise that someone will deny later." You shouldn't know that, the suited man said too quickly. Keep smiling, your email header is on the screen, I told him, and his jaw tightened. What email, he asked. The one that fixes the schedule, I said. My daughter reached us then, cheeks flushed, smile gone. Why are you interrogating staff? She demanded loud enough to gather ears. I'm reading, I said. There's a difference. You're embarrassing me, she said, and the accusation landed with weight because embarrassment is currency in public rooms. We're on a schedule, she added, and there it was, again the word that didn't belong to a dinner. A guest leaned closer to another, whispering, and phones tilted. The mic inside squealed and someone laughed it off, but the laughter didn't travel far. The maid's hand hovered near my sleeve without touching. Sir, she said louder now, braver, the times don't match. Silence fell in a small, dangerous circle. My daughter stared at her, then at me. This is not your concern, she snapped. It is, the maid said, and her badge flashed green as she straightened. It affects flow. Read the clause out loud, I said to my daughter, because families have clauses even when they pretend not to. The room should hear it. She opened her mouth, then closed it, recalculating. The hallway hummed, the building listening, and I felt the moment tip from private to procedural, the kind of shift you can't undo once witnesses feel invited. The clipboard's memory burned in my head as the hallway learned our dinner ran on a clock that lied. A hand touched my arm from behind, firm but careful. Sir, the suited man said, voice low, you need to step back. I looked at the doorway, at the chain beyond it, at the light that refused to even out, and I made a choice to keep the contradiction alive long enough to breathe. I walked toward the threshold with a schedule that didn't fit, and let the room feel it break. The ballroom doors open on a swell of light and sound, and the room accepts me the way public rooms do by assigning me a place before I've agreed to it. Round tables fill fast white linens, glowing under stage lights, faces readable from the podium, where a projector remote rests beside a glass of water. My immediate goal is to sit without triggering attention, to become furniture until the night moves past me, but the host intercepts with a practiced smile and a hand that gestures instead of touches. Right this way, he says, voice bright enough for witnesses. My daughter stands near the stage, shoulders squared, greeting guests, as if warmth can be scheduled. We're almost set, she calls, and the MC nods, tapping the wireless mic once. Phones are already up, a ripple of rectangles framing entrances exits the moment when someone becomes content. A coordinator flips a folded guest list and pauses, brow creasing. Seat C14, she murmurs, then louder, C14. She looks at me, then back at the page. That's taken. It can't be, my daughter says, stepping in smoothly. We reserved. The coordinator angles the paper toward the light, the fold creasing the name line where a suffix marks the seat. C14 is assigned, she repeats, eyes flicking to the podium where the projector remote waits like a promise. We can add a chair, the host offers quickly. No, my daughter says sharper than before. We're on a schedule. The word lands wrong in a room full of forks. Read it again. I say calm because calm makes people lean in. Read the line. The coordinator hesitates, then reads the seat and the location, generic ballroom. Nothing accusatory, just paper doing what paper does. A guest nearby whispers, "Is this a wedding?" Another shakes her head. "No, a dinner." Laughter bubbles and dies. "Sir," the host says quietly, stepping closer, "we'll fix this. Fix what I ask." "The list is wrong," my daughter says, smiling for the room. "He didn't RSVP." "I did." I reply and hold up my phone without unlocking it because proof invites debate. The list shows C14, the coordinator says again, and taps the suffix with her pen. "Assigned earlier than what I ask." She swallows. "Earlier than seating." The MC clears his throat into the mic. "Folks," one moment he says, voice cheerful, and the room stills because microphones make authority audible. The maid stands at the perimeter with a tray she's forgotten to carry, eyes fixed on the floor. "Don't do this," my daughter whispers, stepping into my space, smile welded on. "You're making a scene." "Read the clause out loud," I say softly. "The room should hear it." She stiffens. "What clause?" "Exactly." I answer, and the coordinator's pen clicks. A suited man with a lanyard appears at my elbow. "Sir," he says low, "let's step aside." "No," I say just as low. "We're already here." The MC glances to the projector remote, then back to the guest list, uncertainty flickering. "We can project seating to clarify," he suggests, trying to help. My daughter's eyes flash. "That won't be necessary. Why not someone calls from a table, curiosity loud now?" Phones tilt higher. The coordinator nods at the MC despite herself. He lifts the remote thumb, hovering. "We can put it down?" My daughter says, a smile that doesn't ask. "This is private." "It isn't," the maid says, suddenly. Voice clear, badge green, catching the light. It affects flow. Heads turn. "Who are you?" my daughter snaps. "Staff," the maid replies. And the list changed. Changed how a guest asks, delighted. "Read the time," I say, and the coordinator scans the page, cheeks flushing. She reads a short ref code under her breath, then looks up. "The assignment was updated earlier," she says, and names the location as if it could apologize. "Earlier than doors," I add. The MC lifts the mic. "We're going to take 30 seconds, he announces, trying to keep control. "Please enjoy your drinks." The remote clicks as he sets it down. The suited man leans in. "Your badge is blue," the maid whispers to him. "Mine is green. Don't pretend." He freezes, then straightens. "Ma'am," he says louder, "return to your station." After the list is read, she replies, steady. "Read it," a guest says, emboldened. "What's the harm?" The harm hums in my daughter's jaw as she calculates angles. "Dad," she says too loud, "you always do this. Do what I ask. Count," she says, meaning control. "Yes," I reply. "So do you." The coordinator clears her throat and reads the line again. Seat, suffix, and all, and a woman at C14 raises her hand. "That's my name," she says, puzzled. "I was told to sit there." "Who told you?" someone asks. "The coordinator." She answers, gesturing to the same woman who's now sweating. The projector remote lies untouched, a small object with a large shadow. "We can resolve this," the MC says. "We'll reseat. Before you do," I say, lifting my voice just enough, "answer one thing." I look at my daughter. Why was my seat assigned before doors opened? Silence spreads in a clean circle. The folded guest list becomes a blade when the room realizes the seat moved before anyone arrived. My daughter laughs brittle. "Because we planned," she says. "It's a dinner. Planned seating," I say. Planned timing. "Read the log," the maid says, and the suited man steps in front of her. "Enough," he says. "This is inappropriate." "Keep smiling, your email header is on the screen," I tell him, and his eyes dart to the projector. A murmur rises, witness pressure cresting. "Project it," someone calls. "Project the list." The MC hesitates, thumb grazing the remote again. "We can clarify," he says. "No," my daughter snaps, then softens. "Please." The room weighs the plea. A chair scrapes. A phone flashes. "Sir," the host says to me, almost pleading, "take a seat." "Which one?" I ask, and the question lands with a thud. The maid steps forward, hands shaking but voice firm. "C14 was changed," she says. "I saw it." Gasps pop like static. The MC lifts the mic. "We're pausing," he says, and the pause is a stage. The remote remains on the podium, accusation disguised as plastic, and my daughter's smile finally breaks. The room leans toward the podium as the list stays folded, and the truth waits to be shown. I retreated to a narrow side corridor where the noise dulled and the air smelled like paper and citrus cleaner, a place designed for decisions to be made without witnesses. The sealed legal envelope waited on a rolling cart beside a printer that hummed like it knew better than to speak the flap already creased, as if someone had tested the glue and changed their mind. My immediate goal was clarity. One clean answer that would either send me back into the ballroom or out the nearest exit with my hands empty, but the corridor answered with pressure instead. A coordinator followed me, breath tight. "You can't be back here," she said, eyes flicking to the envelope. "This is internal." "So is the problem," I replied, keeping my voice level. I lifted the envelope just enough to feel its weight, and no more a gesture that said possession, without committing to theft. "Who authorized this?" She swallowed. Legal, she said, then corrected herself. Management. The word again, fog thickening. I opened the envelope halfway and stopped letting the seal resist, so the sound carried a small paper tear that made her flinch. Inside was an internal email printed hard copy headers, trimmed to avoid names, but not intent, a short ref code tucked under the subject line, the body outlining a contingency plan that read like a dinner, only if you'd never read a plan before. The logic fracture landed when the timeline contradicted what my daughter had told the room instructions issued before doors instructions about seating and access instructions about holding a corridor. The cost came immediately. You need to put that down. The coordinator said louder now, and a man with a lanyard appeared as if summoned by volume. Sir, he said, posture blocking the exit. That's not for you. Read the header, I said, tapping the page. The room should hear it. There is no room, he replied. This is private. It isn't, I said. It affects flow. The maid stood at the corridor's mouthcart, abandoned eyes steady. They changed it, she said, and the suited man snapped, Return to your station. Say it again. Your title is liaison, not mine, I said, and his jaw set as if the word had teeth. He reached for the envelope, and I let him touch it just once enough to mark the moment. We're on a schedule, he said quieter. Yes, I replied, and the schedule proves intent. The printer chirped and spat a page absurdly domestic, and the corridor seemed to shrink as footsteps passed on the other side of the door. I scanned the email again, memorizing the phrasing that mattered the conditional language that pretended to be neutral. The envelope seal broke softly, and the plan inside stopped pretending it was a dinner. You're making this worse, the coordinator whispered. For who, I asked. For everyone, she said, and I believed her. I slid the papers back into the envelope without resealing it, a small mercy that kept options alive. Walk me back, I told the suited man. Slow. He hesitated, then nodded, choosing optics over force. As we moved, my phone buzzed in my pocket, my daughter twice, then a third time, and I ignored it because timing matters more than messages. At the doorway, the hum of the ballroom swelled and the chain beyond caught the light, a reminder that patience had been policy until proof arrived. I handed the envelope to the maid, who took it like a fragile thing that could still cut. Hold this, I said. If they ask, you were told. She nodded once. I was told, she repeated, learning the language of protection. The suited man leaned in. If you project anything he said, this escalates. It already has, I replied, and stepped back into the spill of sound with the email's logic burning clean in my head. I returned to the noise, carrying a plan that couldn't survive light much longer. The service corridor hit me like a confession booth, stripped of curtains, white light, no mercy. And the time-stamped CCTV still waited on a corkboard beside a humming monitor clipped with a thumbtack that pinched my thumb when I reached for it. I was supposed to be in the ballroom smiling through a pause, but my immediate goal narrowed to one clean confirmation, the kind that collapses excuses into facts, and the cost announced itself in footsteps echoing closer than they should. The still was grainy but precise, the corridor unmistakable. The chain latched across it earlier than anyone admitted, the ref code scribbled beneath, anchoring it to a system that doesn't forget. I leaned in, breath shallow, counting seconds by the monitor's fan, and the doorway half-light returned, in my head, elevated now, the chain humming tight while proof surfaced. You shouldn't be here, a voice said behind me, clipped and careful. Neither should the chain, I replied without turning, lifting the still to catch the glare. Read the time. That doesn't matter, he said. It does. I answered, and pointed to the corner where the stamp lived, the single moment that collapsed deniability into fact. The glare flattened the image until it looked like daylight itself was testifying, and the corridor seemed to narrow sound, carrying too cleanly. Put it back, he said, stepping closer. We can explain. Explain why access was denied before anyone arrived, I said. Explain why my seat moved before doors. He exhaled through his nose. This is standard. Say it again. Your title is liaison, not mine, I replied, and the words landed because they were true. A security earpiece crackled somewhere, a murmur of codes and calm directives, and the building shifted from hosting to controlling. The maid appeared at the corridor's mouth, hands empty, eyes steady. "I saw it," she said. "They latched it early." Enough, he snapped, then caught himself as voices drifted closer. "We'll talk later." "There is no later," I said, and slid the still free, the thumbtack clinking to the floor like punctuation. The monitor beeped a warning, absurdly polite. The corridor's glare made the chain feel louder as the still proved the block came first. I tucked the image into the legal envelope without looking, trusting muscle memory over panic, and turned toward the ballroom as the earpiece crackled again. "Stand by," someone said through it, and the phrase drew a line I hadn't crossed yet. "Sir." Another voice added softer. "Let's step back inside. After you answer one thing," I said, stopping. "Who ordered the hold?" Silence answered, heavy and instructive. "Management," he said finally. "Read the clause out loud," I replied. "The room should hear it." "This isn't the place," he said. "It is," I answered. "It affects flow." Footsteps multiplied, then slowed, the sound of curiosity arriving. "Dad," my daughter's voice carried down the corridor, sharp now. "Where are you counting?" I said, and she knew what that meant. "You're making this worse," she said, appearing at the threshold with a smile welded on for the cameras she assumed were everywhere. For who, I asked. For everyone, she said, and her eyes flicked to the envelope at my side. "Put that away." "After the list is read," I replied. The maid nodded once. I was told, she said, rehearsing protection. A suited man tried again, positioning himself between me and the door. "Sir, return the still," he said. "You signed the log earlier than this," I replied. "The camera contradicts you." His jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're doing." "I do," I said. "I'm keeping the threshold honest." The chain beyond the corridor caught the light, a thin line that felt louder than the room. Voices from the ballroom swelled, a murmur cresting as the pause stretched. "Project it," someone called faintly. "Clarify." My daughter's smile cracked. "No," she said too fast. "Please." The earpiece crackled again. "Stand by," it repeated closer now. "Who's on standby?" I asked. No answer. A phone vibrated in a pocket. Someone coughed. The envelope warmed against my ribs paper, remembering what it held. "Sir," the liaison said, trying a different angle, "this escalates." "It already has," I replied. "We're past furniture." The maid stepped forward, voice steady. "They blocked it before doors," she said again. I heard the click. "Return to your station." The liaison snapped. "Your badge is blue," she replied. "Mine is green. Don't pretend." He froze, then recovered. "Enough," he said louder, and the word drew a small crowd at the corridor's mouth. "Read it," someone urged. "What's the harm?" The harm lived in my daughter's jaw as she calculated angles. "Dad," she said, pleading, "now you always do this." "Count?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Control." "So do you," I replied, and held the envelope where everyone could see it without seeing inside. The monitor beeped again, the building impatient. "We're returning to the program," a voice announced from the ballroom mic, brittle cheer cracking. "Please take your seats." Chairs scraped, phones lifted. The corridor hummed with decision. I took one step forward, then stopped, letting the pause breathe, because pauses do work when evidence is ready. The image burned clean under the lights, and the chain stopped pretending it was about flow. 1 minute, I said loud enough to travel, then read the list. "No," my daughter said, and the word echoed wrong. "Yes," the maid said, and the crowd leaned. The liaison touched his earpiece. "Proceed," someone said finally. The threshold ahead glowed unevenly, half light refusing to settle, and I understood the echo for what it was. Thresholds don't move unless someone forces them. I walked toward the noise with a still that proved the chain was policy, not accident. The prep hall sits just off the ballroom like a lung that never fully fills stainless counters, reflecting faces without committing to them, and the security earpiece waits on a hook by the door, as if someone forgot a sentence mid-thought. My immediate goal is leverage without spectacle to widen the circle just enough that denial costs more than truth, and the cost arrives as attention staff slow their movements, eyes tracking hands. I lift the earpiece and feel its weight warm from use, and the room quiets the way rooms do when authority objects change hands. "Put that back," the liaison says, voice tight. "That's equipment." "Read the log again," I reply. "The camera contradicts you." He exhales and touches his own earpiece, a reflex that betrays hierarchy. "Stand down," a voice murmurs through the device I'm holding, the words compressed and calm. I don't answer. The maid steps closer, shoulders squared now, and sets a folded paper on the counter without ceremony. "I'll say it," she says, voice steady. "I was told to hold the corridor," by who the liaison snaps. "By instruction," she replies. "Through him." She nods toward the earpiece. A cook freezes with a pan mid-air. "This isn't your concern," my daughter says, appearing in the doorway, smile gone, eyes sharp. It is the maid answers, and the word lands with a quiet finality that makes people choose sides without realizing it. "Read the clause out loud," I say to no one and everyone. The room should hear it. "There is no clause," my daughter says. Then say that I reply. Say there's no instruction to block access. The liaison's jaw tightens. "We're not doing this," he says. "We already are," I answer. This is a witness statement. The maid nods once, a small bow to procedure she never asked for. "I was told the corridor would be latched before doors," she says. I heard the click. "You're mistaken," the liaison says. "No," she replies. "I clean that chain every night." It sounds different when it's said early. A murmur ripples a sound that isn't quite agreement, but isn't nothing either. "Return to your station," he repeats louder. "Say it again. Your title is liaison, not mine," I say, and the line cuts because titles decide who speaks. He steps closer, invading the space where calm lives. "Sir," he says, "this escalates." "Good," I reply. Escalation brings witnesses. A server whispers, "Is this about seating?" Another shakes her head. "It's about access." Phones appear half hidden, half hopeful. The earpiece crackles again in my hand. "Proceed," the voice says, clipped. "Who's that?" I ask, lifting it slightly. Silence answers, instructive in its absence. My daughter reaches for my arm and stops herself. "You're hurting me," she says, not quietly. "I'm protecting myself," I reply. "And you taught me how." She laughs brittle. "Always the martyr, always the planner," I answer. The maid clears her throat. "I'll sign," she says, tapping the folded paper. Statement. The word lands heavier than any accusation. "You can't," the liaison says. "Your staff." "Exactly," she replies. "Witness." He looks around, calculating optics. "We'll handle this internally," he says. "After the list is read," I answer. "After the chain is explained." "This isn't a courtroom," he snaps. "It's a venue," I say. "Public." The earpiece hums against my palm, the building listening through it. "Stand by," the voice says again, closer now, and the phrase changes temperature when repeated. "Stand by for who I ask." The liaison's eyes flick to the door, then back. "Security lead," he says finally. "On standby." The admission ripples, small but decisive. "Good," I reply. Seed planted. My daughter's face goes still. "You called security?" she asks him. "Standard," he says. "Precaution." "Precaution against me," I say, and the room hears the sentence complete itself. "Read it." Someone whispers. "Let her read it." The maid unfolds the paper, hand steady. "I was instructed to hold the corridor before doors," she reads. The instruction came through the liaison's channel. "Stop," the liaison says, too late. "Badge color," I ask. "Green," she answers. "Yours," I ask him. He hesitates. "Blue," he says. "Say it again," I prompt. "Your badge is blue. Mine is green." "Don't pretend," she says, voice carrying, and the line draws a map everyone understands. The earpiece crackles with a sharper tone. "Proceed," the voice repeats, less patient now. "Proceed with what I ask." Silence again. The prep hall swells with bodies at the doorway, curiosity compressing air. We're returning to the program. A voice from the ballroom announces brittle cheer, straining. Chairs scrape. The pause becomes a stage whether anyone wants it to or not. Dad, my daughter says low, please. Read the clause out loud. I reply low enough to be kind. The room should hear it. She looks at the paper at the earpiece at the doorway. There is no clause, she says finally, and the truth lands sideways. Then explain the chain, I say. She opens her mouth, closes, it recalculates. The liaison steps back, choosing distance over dominance. We'll review, he says. After tonight. No, the maid says calm and immovable. Now. The earpiece hums again. Security inbound, the voice says, and the words shift the room's posture. People straighten. Phones tilt higher. On whose authority, I ask. Silence. Read the instruction, I say, lifting the earpiece. The room should hear it. He reaches for it. Stops. Sir, he says you're making this worse. For who, I ask. For everyone, he replies. Exactly, I say. That's why witnesses matter. The maid finishes reading signs and slides the paper across the counter toward me without ceremony. The witness statement settles the room as the earpiece admits help is already coming. My daughter's shoulders drop a fraction, the smallest surrender I've seen from her in years. This isn't over, she says. No, I reply. It's just visible. The prep hall exhales stainless steel, reflecting a truth that doesn't care about reflections. The earpiece hums with standby orders, and the night tilts toward consequences. The storage room smells like dust and plastic, the kind of neutral space that keeps secrets by pretending not to care. And the USB drive waits in an evidence bag on the shelf where spare cables go to be forgotten. My immediate goal is confirmation without witnesses. One clean contradiction that flips leverage, and the cost arrives as isolation. The door clicks shut behind me, soft but final, and the noise from the ballroom thins to a distant pulse. I slide the drive free and feel the ridges bite my thumb, grounding me. A phone on speaker mode rests on a crate already paired, its screen dimmed like it doesn't want to be involved. Play it, I say to myself, because saying it aloud makes the action feel procedural instead of desperate. The file opens with a hiss, then a voice I recognize not by name but by cadence, measured and polite, giving instructions that sound harmless until you line them up with what happened. Latch the corridor before doors, the voice says, calm as a weather report. Seat changes are finalized early. There's a single time-of-day stamp embedded in the audio metadata, one moment, that collapses plausible deniability into a pin you can't pull out without bleeding. The recording clicks on, and the calm voice proves the plan existed before the room did. I pause it and let the silence work, because silence is a verdict waiting. Outside, footsteps pass, and slow curiosity sniffing for entry points. I tuck the drive back into the bag and pocket it, choosing concealment for the next 30 seconds, because timing is everything. The door handle rattles once. Marcus. My daughter's voice filters through softer now, not for cameras. We need to talk. We are, I reply, keeping my voice even. Just not yet. You're going to blow this up, she says. It's already blown, I answer. You're just hearing the echo. She exhales, then switches tactics. You don't know the context, she says. You don't know what I was protecting. Read the instruction out loud, I reply. The room should hear it. A beat. You can't, she says. Why, I ask. Silence again, heavier this time. The phone buzzes in my pocket, a message from an unknown number, stand by. The words sit there like a command that expects obedience. I unlock the door and step into the prep hall because isolation only helps liars, and the hall answers with bodies. Staff cluster at the threshold, eyes wide, phones, half-raised, a witness wave forming in stages, curiosity, silence, then disorder, as people decide whether to move closer or pretend they didn't see. The liaison stands stiff, jaw set, earpiece pressed like a talisman. We're handling this, he says loud enough to sound confident. Internally. After the list is read, I reply louder now because public rooms require volume to legitimize truth, after the chain is explained. You're not authorized, he snaps. Authorization is visible. I answer, and lift the evidence bag just enough for the plastic to catch the light. A murmur ripples. "What is that?" someone whispers. "Audio." The maid says steady. "Instructions." My daughter steps forward, palms open. "Dad, please," she says, and the plea lands because it's real. "If you play that, there's no going back." "Good," I reply. Forward is where truth lives. The liaison touches his earpiece. "Stand by," the voice says again, sharper. "Proceed," it adds, and the ambiguity tightens the room. "Proceed with what I ask," lifting the phone. Silence. "Project it," someone calls from the edge of the hall. "Play it." Phones tilt higher, rectangles bright. The liaison steps into my space. "If you do this," he says, "low security enters." After proof, I reply, "That's the order." He blinks, recalibrates, and steps back, choosing optics over force. The maid nods once, a green badge flashing. "Play it," she says, and the word carries because she's already paid the cost. I tap the phone and set it on speaker volume just high enough to travel without screaming. The calm voice fills the hall again, precise and unmistakable. "Latch the corridor before doors," it repeats. Seat changes finalized early. A gasp pops. Someone laughs once, incredulous, then stops. My daughter's face drains of color. "That's out of context," she says. "Is it?" I ask. What context makes early latching about safety? She opens her mouth, closes. It recalculates. The liaison reaches for the phone and stops when 3 cameras catch his movement. "Don't," the maid says, not loud, not soft, just final. "Read the time," I add, and point to the metadata on my screen, the single stamp, glowing like a bruise. "Earlier than doors," a server whispers. "Earlier than seating another," adds, and the room builds a sentence together without me. "This is inappropriate," the liaison says louder, now performing control. We're returning to the program. After the list is read, I reply. After the chain is explained. Enough, he snaps, then checks himself. "We'll review." Now the maid says, and the word lands with authority she never asked for. The phone buzzes again. "Security inbound." The phrase changes the temperature. Shoulders square, exits get counted. On whose authority, I ask. Silence. "Read it," someone urges, emboldened. Let her read it. The maid steps forward, voice steady, and repeats the instruction she heard the sound of the click, the early latch. "Badge color," I ask her. "Green," she answers. "Yours," I ask the liaison. "Blue," he says. "Say it again," I prompt. "Your badge is blue. Mine is green." "Don't pretend," she says, and the line maps power in a way everyone understands. My daughter rubs her temples. "I was protecting the event," she says. "From what I ask." "From embarrassment," she replies, and the answer condemns itself. "You embarrassed me," she adds, voice cracking. "You planned to," I answer, and the room absorbs the difference. The speaker clicks as the audio ends, silence rushing in to claim its work. The recording flips the room's gravity, and the plan becomes undeniable. "Proceed?" The earpiece says again, closer now, and footsteps sound at the far end of the hall, heavier, purposeful. The liaison straightens, choosing a posture that might survive the next 5 minutes. "Security is arriving," he announces. "Good," I reply. After proof. My daughter looks at me, then really looks, and for a second the room falls away. "You always count," she says softly. "Because someone has to," I reply. The maid steps back into the line of staff shoulders. High eyes clear. Phones remain raised. The hall waits a stage without curtains. Footsteps approach as the audio's calm voice echoes and the trap tightens toward the public truth. The venue entrance narrows the way choices do when you've waited too long to make them, and the door latch chain glints under the lights like it wants credit for the tension it creates. My immediate goal is simple and cruelly hard. Force a decision that can't be walked back. Corner the lie where exits are visible and excuses cost face. The cost arrives as containment. "Sir," the liaison says, stepping sideways to block the door with a smile that knows cameras are watching, "Please remain inside." I glance at the chain, then at the crowd pressing closer. Phones angled, breath held. "That chain shouldn't be latched," I say, calm enough to be audible. "Read the log. We'll review later," he replies. Later isn't available. I answer and touch the chain with 2 fingers, feeling its cold certainty. The maid stands a step behind me, shoulders squared, green badge catching the light like a signal flare. "They latched it before doors," she says again, steady as a metronome. A murmur ripples. Someone whispers, "Why lock an entrance?" Another replies, "To control timing." The sentence builds itself. The liaison lifts a hand. "Everyone please," he says, projecting authority without volume. "We're returning to the program." After the list is read, I reply matching his projection. After the chain is explained, "You're not authorized." He snaps the patient's gone. "Authorization is visible," I say, and gesture to the phones. "Witnesses authorize truth." He steps closer, lowering his voice. "If you keep pushing," he says, "this becomes a security issue." "It already is," I answer. "That's why the chain exists." My daughter appears at my side, eyes bright with something between anger and fear. "Dad," she says low. "Stop." Read the instruction, I reply just as low. The room should hear it. "You don't understand," she says. "You're humiliating me." "You planned humiliation," I answer. I interrupted the schedule. A man in a suit I haven't seen before hovers near the entrance, scanning the latch, the crowd, the phones. He doesn't intervene yet, which tells me more than intervention would. The liaison touches his earpiece. "Stand by." The voice says clipped. "Hold it," adds, and the word shifts posture. "Hold what I ask." Silence answers. A server edges closer. "Sir," she says to me, "people are asking if they can leave." "They can," I reply. The door's right there. The liaison glances at the chain. "After we resolve this," he says, "resolve what a guest asks loud enough to claim a role." "The seating mix-up," the liaison replies. Laughter bubbles and dies. "It's not seating," the maid says. "It's access." Heads nod. "It's control," someone whispers. I step closer to the chain and angle my body so the cameras can see the latch clearly. "Read the time," I say, and lift my phone just enough to show the security log entry I memorized earlier, the one that recorded a hold at the entrance before doors. I don't say where it came from. Provenance will matter later. "Earlier than doors," a guest murmurs, recognizing the pattern from the audio. "Earlier than seating another," adds. The liaison exhales, then tries a different mask. "Sir," he says, voice softening, "we can seat you now." "Which seat?" I ask. C14. A woman near the front raises her hand again. "That's mine," she says, puzzled. "They told me to sit there." "Who told you?" someone asks. "Staff," she replies, gesturing to the cluster behind me. The maid nods once, owning the truth without drama. "Read the log," I repeat. The room should hear it. My daughter steps in front of me, using her body as a shield. "Please," she says, voice cracking. "If this gets worse..." "Worse than planning to lock me out," I ask. "Worse than moving my seat before doors." She looks away. "I was protecting the event," she says again, weaker now. From embarrassment, I reply, and let the crowd do the rest. A phone flash pops. The suited newcomer shifts closer eyes on the chain. "Sir," he says to the liaison, measured, "why is that latched?" "Crowd flow?" The liaison replies automatically. "Flow from where the newcomer asks." From the entrance, the liaison says, then stops. The silence that follows is surgical. "Open it," someone calls. "Just open it." The liaison hesitates. "We can't," he says. "Why not?" a chorus answers. He touches his earpiece again. "Stand by," the voice repeats, less patient now. Footsteps echo from deeper inside the building, heavier, coordinated. The newcomer's jaw tightens. "Who's coming?" a guest asks. "Security." The liaison says, choosing honesty because it's the only option left. "On whose authority?" I ask. Silence. Read the instruction, I say, lifting my phone. The room should hear it. He looks at the cameras, at my daughter, at the chain. We'll review after, he says. "No," the maid says, calm and immovable. "Now." I reach for the chain and stop short of touching it, letting restraint speak. "You don't need me to break it," I say. "You need to explain it." The newcomer steps closer. "Sir," he says to the liaison, "unlock the entrance." "I don't have the code," the liaison replies. Who does the newcomer asks. The liaison swallows. Security, he says. Good, I reply. They're on the way. The crowd leans witness wave cresting. Phones rise higher. My daughter rubs her temples. You always count, she says softly. Because someone has to, I answer. Because numbers don't care who we love. The suited newcomer turns to the crowd. Please remain calm, he says. Authority settling into place. We'll clarify. After the log is read, I add, after the time is explained. He nods once, an almost smile of agreement. The liaison looks at him, then at me, then away. The earpiece crackles. Arriving, the voice says. The word lands like a gavel. The chain gleams. The door stays shut. The room holds its breath. The latch waits as the log closes the exits, and the lie runs out of space. Chairs scrape. Someone coughs. A child asks, "Why can't we go?" A parent answers, "Because they planned it." The truth spreads without me touching it. Footsteps approach the entrance as the chain refuses to move, and the decision becomes unavoidable. The main stage turns white bright the moment I step behind the glass podium light, flattening faces and stripping shadows of their alibis, and the room rearranges itself into witnesses. My immediate goal is not persuasion, but sequence proof first, then authority, and the cost announces itself as risk phones tilt higher. The hum tightens, and the door behind us stays shut, because the chain has decided it belongs to the truth now. The legal notice lies flat on the podium. Hard copy edges crisp its weight, different from paper meant to invite. This paper intends to end something. We're resuming the MC says brittle cheer cracking. Please. After this, I reply into the wireless mic, and the word carries because it's calm. My daughter stands 3 steps off stage, posture, perfect eyes glassy. The liaison shifts at the aisle jaw set. You can't do this, he says, not loud, not soft. Read the notice, I answer. The room should hear it. He looks to the MC. The MC looks to the crowd. Someone says, let him read. The projector hums awake a low animal sound, and the first slide appears a title block neutral font. No names yet. This is inappropriate, the liaison says. This is public, I reply, and tap the glass podium with one finger, the sound small but decisive. Proceed. The earpiece murmurs somewhere, and the word finally finds a subject. I lift the notice and read the opening lines. Plain language that doesn't dramatize, because it doesn't need to, a statement of intent and scope that frames what follows without apology. Read the clause out loud. Someone whispers, delighted and afraid. I do. The clause explains access control. Early hold seating changes, finalized before doors. The exact behaviors the room has already felt. Gasps pop like static. Out of context, my daughter says louder now, performing care for the room. Read the attachment, I reply, and the projector advances. A screenshot blooms masked headers intact ref code, visible location generic, and the room builds the sentence again without me. Earlier than doors, a voice says. Earlier than seating, another adds. This is a mistake, the liaison says. A clerical error. Then explain the audio, I reply, and nod to the MC. He swallows and taps play. The calm voice fills the hall again, precise and unmistakable, instructing early latching and finalized seating, a plan that thought itself invisible. Laughter bursts and dies. That's edited, my daughter says. Read the time, I reply, and point to the single stamp glowing on the screen one moment that collapses deniability into a bruise. Under the stage lights, the proof lines up, and the room watches a private plan become public fact. The maid stands at the aisle green badge, bright hands steady. I heard the click, she says when the audio ends. Before doors. Phones flash. A child asks, why would they do that? A parent answers, so they could choose when. The liaison steps forward. We're ending this, he says, voice cracking into authority. Security, he calls too early. After proof, I reply, and lift the final attachment. It's the hard truth. The room can't dodge a legal notice that names conduct cites evidence and states consequence masked enough to protect privacy, but clear enough to close exits. I read it without emphasis, letting the language do the work. You're humiliating us, my daughter says, and the word us tries to share the blame. You planned it, I reply. I interrupted the schedule. The MC looks at the liaison. The liaison looks at the door. The door opens finally, not for escape, but for order. 2 officers step in, badges, catching the stage light posture neutral because neutrality is their first language. They don't speak yet. They don't need to. The room exhales. Who authorized this one? Asks calm. Read the notice, I say, and hand it across the podium without stepping back. He reads, nods once, then looks at the liaison. Sir, he says we need to speak with you. This is a misunderstanding, the liaison replies. Then you'll welcome clarity, the officer says, and gestures toward the aisle. The liaison's eyes flick to the cameras, to my daughter, to the floor. He steps away from the podium because gravity has changed. My daughter moves toward me, stops short of the glass. Dad, she says, voice small now. I was protecting the event. From embarrassment, I reply gentle, because gentleness lands harder now. By choosing when I arrived, she says. By choosing where you sat, I answer. By choosing who watched. She closes her eyes. The MC clears his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he says, the old cadence returning with new respect. We'll be taking a brief pause. The projector freezes on the notice text, readable faces reflected in the glass podium as if the room wants to see itself seeing. One officer speaks again, voice even. We'll need the recordings, he says. We have them, I reply, and nod to the maid who lifts the evidence bag just enough for the plastic to catch the light. Good, the officer says. We'll take statements. He looks to the crowd. If you recorded, please preserve your files. A ripple of compliance follows. The chain at the entrance clicks open at last, not because someone pulled it, but because it has finished its job. The liaison is escorted a few steps off stage, not cuffed, not shamed, simply moved, and the movement does more work than drama ever could. My daughter watches, hands clasped, shoulders tight. I didn't think it would get here, she says. Plans don't think, I reply. They schedule. The officer returns to the podium. Sir, he says to me, thank you for your cooperation. Cooperation tastes different when it's earned. I step back from the glass and let the room breathe. People talk in low voices now, the sound of a truth settling into furniture. The MC lowers the mic. The lights dim a fraction, not hiding anything, just allowing faces to exist again. I meet my daughter's eyes. We'll talk later, she says. We will, I reply. After this. The officer nods to his partner. We'll proceed, he says. And the word finally has a subject that isn't pretending. The maid exhales a long breath she's been holding all night. Phones lower. The door stands open unguarded because it doesn't need guarding anymore. The badge glints as authority steps forward only after the truth fills the room. The room settles into a quieter geometry. After authority takes its place, chairs realigning without being told, voices dropping because the work has shifted from spectacle to consequence. The hard copy notice letter rests in my hands, now heavier than it looked on the podium, the paper's edges sharp and exact, meant to be passed across desks that prefer silence. My immediate goal is execution without cruelty, payoff that lands cleanly and leaves no space for improvisation, and the cost is emotional. Every step forward feels like choosing a version of family that doesn't include excuses. An officer gestures toward a side table near the stage. We'll take statements there, he says, calm as a metronome. We'll start with staff. The maid nods and moves first. Shoulders high, badge green, catching the light one last time before it becomes just a badge again. Thank you, the officer says, and the word is procedural, not personal, which makes it kinder than comfort. The liaison stands a few feet away, posture, rehearsed eyes, scanning for a narrative that might still be available. This is being mischaracterized, he says to no one in particular. It was crowd control. Read the notice, the officer replies and holds the paper out. The liaison's eyes flick over the text, the clauses he hoped would remain invisible. He exhales. We'll cooperate, he says, and the sentence means surrender without apology. Good, the officer answers and motions toward the aisle. This way. Cameras track the movement, then lower as the drama drains from it. The escort is unremarkable, and that is the point. My daughter lingers at the edge of the stage, hands clasped, face composed the way she learned in rooms that rewarded composure over truth. "Are you satisfied?" she asks, quiet enough that only I hear. "No," I reply. "I'm finished." She flinches. "You always make it sound final." "Because it is," I say. "Plans end when light arrives." She swallows. "I didn't think it would go this far." "You scheduled it," I answer. "It went where schedules go." She looks past me at the officer taking notes at the Maid, speaking steadily at the phones now pocketed because the story has become boring in the best way. "What happens now?" she asks. "Now," I say, "we let the process do its work." The MC approaches mic, lowered relief evident. "We'll need to adjourn," he says, glancing at the officers for confirmation. One nods. "Please," the MC announces, voice returning to its old cadence with new gravity. "We'll conclude for the evening." Chairs scrape a human sound that feels earned. People stand whispering in low currents that carry respect more than gossip. A woman at the front catches my eye. "Thank you," she says, surprising both of us, for not letting it slide. I nod because gratitude isn't the point, but it lands anyway. At the side table, statements stack neatly each page, a brick placed where denial used to live. The officer looks up at me. "Sir," he says, "we'll need your account." I sit and speak plainly, dates, avoided times, relative actions concrete. I describe the chain, the list, the audio, the early holds. I describe the room's reaction, because rooms matter. He listens, pen moving, nodding when it aligns with what he already knows. "You did the right thing," he says, and the sentence carries weight, because it isn't dramatic. "I did the necessary thing," I reply, and he smiles small. Sometimes that's the same. My daughter approaches again, slower now, eyes softer. "I was trying to protect us," she says, and the ooze sounds like a raft. From embarrassment, I answer gentle, because gentleness works here, by choosing when I arrived. "I didn't think you'd fight," she says. "You trained me to," I reply. She closes her eyes, a long breath leaving her. "We'll talk," she says. "We will," I answer. "After you stop scheduling people." She laughs once hollow, then nods. The maid finishes her statement and steps back, hands shaking now that the task is done. I offer her the chair beside me, and she sits, relief spilling into posture. "You were brave," I say. "I was tired," she replies, and the honesty is perfect. The officer hands her a card. "If you remember anything else," he says. She nods. "I remember enough," she says, and stands straighter than before. A supervisor from the venue arrives, face pale, voice careful. "We'll cooperate fully," he says. "We'll review protocols." "Do," the officer replies. "And document." The hard copy notice letter circulates through hands that have learned to treat paper like law. It lands back with me, at last creased, now human. I fold it once and slide it into my jacket, because keeping it feels like closing a door gently rather than slamming it. The chain at the entrance hangs slack, forgotten a prop after the scene has ended. People file out, night air meeting faces that look different after witnessing something real. My daughter stands with me at the doorway, the half-light replaced by a steadier glow. "I didn't mean to trap you," she says. "Intent doesn't erase design," I reply. "Design tells the truth." She nods, absorbing it. An officer approaches, measured. "We'll follow up," he says. "Expect contact." "I will," I reply. He pauses. For what it's worth, he adds, "Public proof matters." "That's why I waited," I say. He nods and turns away. The MC locks the podium case. Staff move with purpose now, not avoidance. The maid waves once from the hall, a small gesture that carries a lot. I wave back. We step outside into cooler air, the building exhaling behind us. My daughter looks up at the facade, then at me. "I'm sorry," she says finally. I consider the word, let it land where it belongs. "That's a start," I say. The street hums, ordinary and forgiving. Justice doesn't shout, it files papers and changes who controls the door. We walk a few steps together, then stop because endings deserve to be marked. She turns toward her car. I turn the other way. The night accepts both directions without comment. The notice letter rests in my pocket as the door closes quietly on the plan. I stand in the same place where the night first paused me, present tense, insisting on honesty. The bright stage spotlight now angled toward the doorway instead of the podium, flooding the threshold with a clean, ordinary light that doesn't flatter or accuse. The building feels lighter without the plan inside it, as if walls remember what they're for once pressure leaves. People move past me in small groups, coats on voices low, the hum of aftermath, replacing the hum of control, and the door stays open without anyone guarding it, because nothing needs guarding anymore. My immediate goal is closure, without theater to return to motion, without pretending the stillness didn't matter, and the cost is acceptance. The knowledge that endings don't rewind families, they simply stop the damage from repeating. The spotlight warms my face as I step forward, and the glass at the entrance reflects me clearly for the first time tonight, not split by half light, not warped by expectation. The motif resolves quietly, not with a flourish, but with visibility. Full light floods the threshold. Nothing blocks entry. A staff member nods to me, not deferential, just human. The maid passes with a cart she's reclaimed, shoulders looser now, and she meets my eyes with a small smile that doesn't ask for anything. I nod back because gratitude doesn't need an audience. Outside, the street waits indifferent and generous headlights streaking past like time reminding us it keeps moving whether we do or not. My phone vibrates once with a message from an unknown number. Follow-up details tomorrow, and I pocket it without answering because the present is enough for now. The officer who spoke earlier stands near the curb, speaking softly into a radio badge, catching the spotlight's edge. He sees me and gives a brief nod that contains no congratulations, only acknowledgement, which is better. You did right, he says anyway, because sometimes words matter, even when they repeat themselves. I did what was there, I reply, and he smiles as if that's the correct answer. My daughter stands a few steps away, hands in her pockets, posture unsure now that choreography has ended. She looks at the doorway at the light at me. It looks different, she says. It is, I answer, because we stopped telling it what to be. She exhales and shifts her weight. I thought control would keep it safe, she says. Control makes noise, I reply. Safety makes room. She nods slowly, as if filing the sentence somewhere she'll need later. We don't hug. We don't need to. Distance can be a form of respect when it's chosen. Inside, staff dismantled the stage, with efficient hands cords coiled the glass podium covered and rolled away the projector powered down with a click that sounds final in a good way. The bright spotlight stays on a moment longer, illuminating the entrance as if the building wants to remember this configuration. I watch it, feeling the way light changes a space without asking permission. The chain that once owned the door hangs slack against the wall, forgotten its job, complete in a way it never intended. A supervisor passes voice, careful. We'll review everything he says. Document changes, do I reply, and keep the door honest. He nods, chastened and grateful, all at once. I step outside fully now, night air cool on my face, the street sound wider than any room. The present settles into my bones, steady and unadorned. A passerby who watched earlier recognizes me and looks away, embarrassed by recognition. That's fine. Witnesses get to leave too. I walk a few steps, then stop because endings deserve to be noticed even when they're quiet. I turn back once more and look at the entrance framed by the spotlight, a rectangle of light that used to mean hesitation and now means passage. The emotional echo arrives without warning, not pain but relief, the release that comes when you realize you're no longer counting seconds. I don't inventory exits anymore. I don't trace lines with my eyes. I breathe and let the breath be enough. The building hums behind me, back to being a building, and that normalcy feels like a gift earned by refusing to accept the wrong normal earlier. A couple emerges laughing, the sound unburdened. A child runs ahead, tugged back by a parent's hand, the reflex kind. Sorry, the parent says to me, unnecessary. No harm, I reply, and mean it. Harm has a specific shape now. It's easier to recognize when it's not present. The spotlight dims a fraction, not out, just softer, and the doorway remains clear. My daughter joins me at the curb, silence companionable now. "We'll talk," she says again, this time without urgency. "We will," I answer, and the promise feels realistic because it isn't scheduled. She nods and heads to her car, pauses, then turns back. "Thank you," she says, awkward and sincere. I nod because thank yous don't fix things, but they open space for fixing later. She drives off, taillights dissolving into the stream. I turn the other way and start walking, the city accepting me without questions. The spotlight behind me clicks off at last, and the doorway remains visible in ambient light alone. Nothing dramatic, nothing hidden. The motif completes itself without commentary. Full light replaces half light. Entry is ordinary again. I think of the maid's steady voice, the officer's calm questions, the way the room learned to listen when proof spoke plainly. I think of paper doing its quiet work, and of plans losing their grip when exposed to air. At the corner, I stop and look back one final time, not to check, but to acknowledge. The building stands, doors open, people moving freely. The present holds, the threshold stands fully lit, and the past no longer blocks the way. I breathe in and out uncounted. The door stays open, and I walk forward without permission.